Yes, we're on record now. Yeah. Okay. Okay, welcome to all the participants. We have touched 120 plus now, and out of 608 registration, I'm sure over the period we will have at least 50% plus from the registration participating. Very important subject that we are talking about. So I'm very happy to say that 16th knowledge webinar series on the date of 17th October, starting at 11 o'clock. We have a wonderful panelist, and we have a keynote speaker, the Vice Chairman of National Building Code, Mr. V. Suresh, who is going to give a opening remark. And we have very distinguished panelist, Mr. T.R.A. Krishnan, the code writer, who knows almost all the country's codes. And we have Mr. Santosh Warik, the author of Maharashtra Fire Act, and very knowledgeable person, and Abhay, the most highly educated from the fire field, the kind of knowledge he carries, wonderful, very soft-spoken Mr. Abhay Purandare, the youngest panelist in this forum, is also there. So welcome all of you, and it's a great pleasure to see you all here. And just before we start, I would like to tell our friends that we are going to start three webinar series on pacifier protection, will be conducted by Mr. Abhishek Chabra from UAE, from Dubai-based company. So most of you know about National Building Code, the evolution of National Building Code, when it started, and how it various revisions that happened in the past. And all those people who are connected to National Building Code are here. The person who started the National Building Code and being part of it, he spent almost 54 years in the Bureau of Indian Standard in writing codes. So he's also here. That is none other than keynote speaker, Mr. Vasudevan Suresh, Mr. Suresh from Civil Engineering, Anna University, with over 55 years of professional experience in the housing infrastructure, rural and urban development, and built environment sector. He has worked in Tamil Nadu Works Department for 1.5 years, later in Bureau of Indian Standard for 12.5 years, and was directly associated with formulation of leading national standards and codes and National Building Code, and is now the Vice Chairman of National Building Code Sectional Committee and Chairman Housing Planning and Prefabricated Construction Sectional Committee of BIS. He is the former Chairman and Managing Director of Housing and Urban Development Corporation, and is the current Chairman of Indian Green Building Council and Vice Chairman of NBC. And there is a series of awards he has received over the 55 years, and it is highlighted here. One that I would like to talk about is the Eminent Engineer Award and Architectural Award, Engineer of the Year by Institution of Fire Engineer, is a notable reward that he has received in the 2001 and 2006. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would request Mr. V. Suresh to give his opening remarks in this 17th Knowledge Series. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dominic. I'm very happy. Good morning to you, all the distinguished participants to the program. And I find that the number has already increased, 171 now. In the short 2 to 3 minutes time, increase of 121. And I'm sure by the time we catch up, we will easily come to around 300 shortly. And to my fellow panelist, the veteran, Mr. T.R.A. Krishnan, who has been in this particular sector for over 4 decades in standardization work and on the fire protection standardization, regulatory work, etc. Warik Saab, who has also been a veteran in the Maharashtra Fire Service and also in the trend-setting act that they brought out, and which is produce impact, and Purandare Saab contributing in a very large way to the initiative in Gujarat and other consultancy work. I'm very happy to have all of you to join in this particular one. Since it's going to be an opening remarks from my side, NBC is by now known to everybody. The latest, after the 70 version, the 83 version, 2005 version, is the fourth version, which is the 2016 version, which has come. The moment 2016 version of NBC has come over there, it's also time when building construction activity has received phenomenal amount of impetus of not only all types of buildings, but also heights of building increasing from what it was earlier, 30, 40 years back, to maybe around 10 story to 20 story, 20 story, beginning 30 to 40, maybe 20 years back, now even coming to 50 stories and beyond that. And all types of complex building, what is vanilla building of one type of occupancy has increased now to mixed occupancies of different nature in different floors coming from the lower to the upper over there. And the component of many buildings having the retail component as well as the multiplex and other related things also added to a lot of value on that. Housing has become a very major area where the apartments are really caught up in a very large way. And then we got into the larger component of the healthcare and hospitals, where the fire safety aspects became important because movement of the people within the building, because they are either not in the able condition, they are either in a coma condition or an ICU condition, various other conditions are there. So requirements in respect of all those occupancies where the movement of the people is restricted, or by design they can't move, and therefore how do you take care of such situations in a large way from fire safety point of view become an important one, and more important life safety component in a very large way. You'll be very happy to know after the National Building Code was fourth version got released, 2016 version got released, the Part 4 on National Building Code is the one part which has received the maximum amount of attention, because that's one part which has become mandatory. Mandatory means everybody has got to follow, while the remaining parts has got a recommendatory status where it will be a guiding document. You may use it or you may use a guidance. Part 4 is one which is made compulsory not by the National Building Code by itself, but by the regulatory authorities, which are all the state, fire and rescue and emergency service. I'm using these three words because different state has got different ways. Fire services, fire and rescue services, fire rescue and management, emergency service, etc. All of them are the one going to deal with the implementation along with the municipal corporation or a municipality. The compliance is going to be looked by the chief fire officer of the city, either from the city side or on the state side. So all of them are made NBC provisions mandatory. That means every line and every word of the particular clause in Part 4 becomes sacrosanct. So therefore, every user, all the builders, all your developers, all your consultants, your architects, your civil engineers, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, firefighting, consultants who deal with all the different national buildings, each have to go through like a tooth comb to find that it doesn't affect. So therefore, this is a one document which has got large amount of comments received. After the building code was released in 2016, every day there'll be some comment because each one is utilizing that part of the thing. They suddenly find some little difficulty in implementing that, some clarification required. Their misinformation, disinformation, lack of information has to be conveyed through the right information so that they will all understand that. So therefore, the panel dealing with the fire protection, of which fortunately we are the district, I am a member, and Krishnan Saab is a member, and so also is Warik Saab. So three of the members of the panel dealing with fire protection are continuously meeting, seeing the comments. We have received about 250 pages of comments, and committee must have sat through 2 full days. Even the minutes of the meeting is around 200 pages, minutes of the meeting. What it shows the depth to which people have gone into the whole document, because this is one part of the building code which is now seeing the light of the day, and implementation is 100% pakka, and that's very good. And that's also an area where large number of conferences and seminars have been organized, not only by various bodies, whether Indian Institute of Architects, the Institution of Engineers, Institution of Fire Engineers, FSI, FPAI, plus all the other bodies, Association of Consulting Civil Engineers. There isn't a forum where NBC Part 4 is not discussed in every alternate week. Once in 2 weeks, there'll be one happening in India. I'm talking about the last 4 years. So therefore, it has already now become a very important, popular event there. We are going to touch 200 people on the event already, and that's a very happy augury. And what I'm going to do now is, it will not be an opportunity to tell what the building code, everybody knows that. What I'm going to indicate to you, what are the critical areas which are now receiving attention. When you say people are asking comments from the regulator side, fire authority side, they want to implement rightly, or the user side, builders and developers, or the professionals dealing with that, are they either the architects and engineers dealing with the three-dimensional space into which fire safety has to come in, or the people dealing with all the services, utility services, which is contributing to fire spread, air conditioners, lift installation, electrical installation, etc., etc. So each one of them, what comments or users of the particular one, what are the views on that? Broadly, what I'll do in the next few minutes time, in my opening remarks, is to tell on that. One of the most important is, what about the applicability of the thing? I'm sure a lot of questions have already come, and this is a session where more than presentation, it will be Q&A session will be following in a big way. Applicability means not only buildings beyond a certain height, which we indicated there, also even building a lower height, but if the area is more, like it can be an assembly building or a hospital building or a school building, even if it doesn't go beyond 15 meters, applicability will come on that into a large way. That's the first aspect on applicability of the code. Applicability means all contents are applicable. Applicability from getting a fire NOC from the fire authorities as part of the building plan approval process. Let us get it very clear. Otherwise, all the technical requirements, planning requirements, these applicable, everybody has got to comply, but they don't have to specifically submit the particular one for those clause thing for approval for the local body oblique the fire authorities. That's the first clarity. Second most important component is in respect of the issues on the zoning and type of construction and the fire resistance rating. I'm putting it all together so that the time will be shorter. I'll cover that particular thing into a very large way. And that's an important thing on how the buildings are done in various fire zones, especially don't put those with very high fire severity and fire load like industrial, hazardous and other related particular thing close to residential other zone where the fire severity is smaller. So a sensitive aspect of the zoning aspect is the one area some questions have come. And what type of occupancies to be permitted for each of the building? Now that mixed use occupancy has come into a very large way, what all things can come? What requirements to be done between one occupancy? If you have occupancies of different nature, what will govern for you to decide for the particular fire resistance rating or between one occupancy and another, so that one occupancy does not affect the working of the other group is an important one. Fire resistance rating is a very important component for all the elements of the construction, be it walls or roofs or slabs or beams, etc., etc. Plus both not only the fire load bearing or non-load bearing, other required, including for compartments, etc. So that's another major area on which the comments have come. Glass is another major area which has come into the system. I hope all of you are aware that the National Building Code of India has got an exclusive document on structural glazing coming, which is on Part 6, Section 8, first building code in the world. And your code writers in the NBC have gone out of the way to ensure when you have glass enclosure coming over there, whatever openings you put, that was never there earlier. So the openings are coming over there into the code. A lot of questions on what should be the type of glass to be used, how do you deal with the opening, and that's another set of questions which are coming in this particular area. Exits are a very major component in respect of rooms, to the doors, to the corridors, to the staircase, to the ramp, till you get out of the particular building. How do you design occupant load, travel distances? How do you design unit exit weights? What type of thing, handrails, trades, and how do you reach till the outside area, how do you design that in very minute detail? All access, egress, and exit requirements is a very, very major area, especially the type of benefits that will come in a sprinklered building with certain amount of additional thing for travel distance or other related things is another major area which has come. Compartmentation is another major area. There was a very major seminar which was organized by Dominic on first time compartmentation came in this study, and I'm very happy that that topic is an important component in the building over there. NBC has covered that into very, very minute detail of containing the particular thing as if they are enclosed spaces beyond which you put the right level of blocks, so it doesn't, the conflagration spread of the fire doesn't take place in a large way. Compartmentation is a very major component into which some of the queries have come into it in a very large way. Fire tower, a very interesting component which has been brought in into the 2016 version, and again attracted, very well received by the users, and also being applied into a very large way. And that I'm sure some questions are also coming in this particular area. And the next major one is, why don't we do it for different, because they're not understood fully, for different occupancies and different. And that's exactly what table 7 has done. The table 23 in 2005 version is a table 7 coming. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to indicate that it's one of the finest documents that has been created over there, where all the occupancies are there on the left-hand side for different heights, lower heights, smaller heights, medium heights, slightly larger, and very tall building. For each of those occupancies, different heights of building, what was the thing in the horizontally, the thing required in respect of all the firefighting system, either you have the wet riser or a hose reel or other related thing, or sprinkler required, detector required, manual or automatic. All those details, like a school baby, that 4 pages of table 7 covers everything that's required. If you are master of table 7 of the NBC, you are master of everything, because that all thought process got, and with the various notes under that, that will exactly know in every building, depending upon the nature of occupancy and the heights of building, what should be the type of fire fighting equipment, the fire protection system needed, the detection system needed, alarm system needed, water storage needed, etc., are covered into very minute detail in that. Many people do not know this particular thing. I just thought is indicating. Since buildings cover all requirement, is also another important thing called the seismic bracing, because you also have the places covered with very high wind load. You're also having seismic requirement. And how do you design for high-rise building the seismic bracing to be done, so that all your installations and all will also be able to take a response system on those areas, is another area of coming. And the related thing on the new component automatic deluge system with deluge valves and nozzles, which come into our chapter on compartmentalization as well as on basement, has also come in for very good queries which has come, clarity has come into that particular area. Pump capacity, the type of pressure required is another major. I'm sure Mr. Krishnan will be opening out into that. These are very, very important aspects. If it has got to have the pressurization issue, the type of water pumping capacity, the type of pressure required for each of them are very, very important areas which also requires to be kept into view in a very large way. And I'm sure people will be opening into that. Differently abled people, either within the same building, physically and other handicapped people, or hospitals, etc., or schools which are young children and medium children. What do you do with the new education policy? You know, all of them are coming over there. How do you deal with that? Supreme Court has already ordered, after 100 students died in Kanchipuram fire over there, clear orders of fire safety requirements of school building into a very large way. I hope you're all aware of it. So I would advise that in addition to Part 4 requirements which is covered there, Part 3 of the National Building Code has 118 pages of coverage for differently abled people, how the spaces are to be done in terms of various requirements of movement and other related things. Kindly read that together in a large way. In the respect of the electrical cables and all, FRLS cables and other related things, detailed guidance are available in respect of those which cannot contribute to fire, we can save in a large way. Smoke extraction is another major component, which is also come into the application in a very large way, and I'm sure this will also be discussed in a large when you discuss the provision in a large way. And very, very importantly, I have one of the things that come over is the right link in the building permit stages. This is a general one. You do in the beginning, along with the building plan, all the fire safety requirements and life safety to incorporate it, which will be approved by the fire authorities through an NOC or whichever way, based on which only a building permit is made available, and what are all the things to be given. That's an administrative provision. Number two, when the whole building is completed, civil wise, all the equipments are installed, and when they submit the completion certificate for occupancy permit stages there, again, the NOC will come from the fire authority. And that has also been brought in over there in a very detailed manner. And therefore, how do you deal with that? And then the fourth area that comes over is what will happen to a building. After the post completion, occupancy is there. Is the sprinkler working, detector working, the fire extinguisher working, etc., etc. You have the assets and facility management coming, Part 12 of the National Building Code, to keep them continuously 24/7 in an operational gear. How do you do that? That's a very major component to do it. Installing every requirement is one thing. Installing is one. Whether it is continuously working or not, performance is an important component coming on that. And therefore, that has brought in over there of what is called periodic renewal certificate. Some people want to do once in a year. Many people say even once in 3 or 4 years good enough. For certain types of building, you can decide on periodicity, how you want to do that. And the idea is to see that your building is safe at all points of time. What does it know? Because large number of fires that has taken place there, at that point of time, the sprinkler doesn't work, detector doesn't work, alarm doesn't work, water is not there in the sump. No, this doesn't, it's not good at all. So therefore, all these aspects come into it. And this will bring in the last component, my closing point of the day, is what is called fire audit. How do you do after the buildings are completed? We are really trying to find out, just like you go to the doctors at very regular intervals to know whether you're fine or not, to have a third party audit of your particular building from fire safety point. That's called the fire audit. You can have structural audit for structural sufficiency of building beyond a certain year. Is it still strong and stable? Or fire audit is an equally important component. We brought in a very interesting component on that, which is linked with the fire drill and other related aspects there. But that's also an important component which will help us to know what is the health. Health means real physical health of all the installation. Which are the things which require to be replacement? Which are the required that should be modified or changed or require some changes to be done, etc., depending upon the change. Because the reason why I'm trying to say is that buildings, when they are completed, the occupancy certificate is required. When you start occupying that, large number of changes do happen, which was never envisaged earlier. You thought that the whole space is going to be one occupancy. You always put some other occupancy with higher fire load. All the interiors come over there. Otherwise, we get a floor which is all bare floor, 20,000 square feet, 50,000 square feet. Bare floor is what you give an occupancy certificate. But then the interiors come in over there with furnitures, furnishing, tapestry, carpets, whatever. The fire load has increased phenomenally. So therefore, and many so-called exits you have planned, they will block it over there. So that can only be known during that particular phase. So therefore, this renewal certificate and the inspection by the fire team and the audit is an important component onto which also we should spend a little amount of time, because everybody has got to put their hands together in one way positively for the clap to take place. And this is not an area of policeman versus fire policeman versus the builder. It is not one chasing the other. It's all working together for the safety of the life of the people in that, as well as the building to be safe in a positive way. So ladies and gentlemen, I would not like to take any further time. We have three distinguished panelists. They will open out. Then the Q&A will start. We'll all join. The large number of questions have come over there. And I'm very happy that even though I started about 170 people, now already 220 people are already logged in there. It shows very wide, what can I say, the type of demand for the particular topic. And thank you very much, Dominic, for the opportunity given to open out. I'll join towards the end for the Q&A later. And all best wishes to my distinguished panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. There was so much energy in the morning. And ladies and gentlemen, it was Mr. V. Suresh, the person who's been part of the National Building Code since 54 years. So I now move on to the distinguished panelist, the eminent panelist, Mr. T.R.A. Krishnan. I would always say the code writer and fire safety advisor. very senior person who was part of the TAC, Tariff Advisory Committee. Later, it was disabled for various reasons. And but in those days, if you want to have an insurance, you need to have a TAC approval certificate to cover. So later, he became the code writer. He was instrumental in bringing out water mist system regulations for the first time in the country in 1992. Active member in Bureau of Indian Standards since 1979 and drafted, revised several Indian standards like smoke detector, sprinkler, and codes for sprinkler and spray system, fire alarm system, code of practices, etc. for Bureau of Indian Standard. He's a member in several committees of BIS dealing with fire and life safety, including National Building Code since 1993. Most active member in the revision of National Building Code 2060. Addressed several seminars on fire regulations, NBC compliances, fire safety audited, insurance requirement, etc. on other topics relevant to fire and life safety, risk management, etc. Third-party auditor may, for many IRIS hotels, buildings, Reliance Industry, ITC, and etc., is today an independent auditor. He has an in-depth knowledge on LPCB, NFPA, UL, FM. Whenever he's there, once I visited his home. One of the room is converted as a library, and I could see every country's building codes are stuck in the shelves. So whenever I ask question, he takes Australian code, whether it is a New Zealand code, whether it is a Canadian code, he has everything. He is so passionate about the codes and best practices. He is widely traveled across the globe and today is a highly respected safety audit and inspection for various institutions like Mantralaya, and also he's investigated many buildings. That is Mr. T.R. Krishnan, who is currently based out of Coimbatore. Sir, before I move on to the other panelists, do you have anything to say, a few words?
Good day to everybody. It's a really nice on part of Mr. Dominic to arrange such an interaction. I'm sure it's going to be quite useful for everybody, including the code writer, including the authorities. Everybody, it will. I have seen some good questions, so we are going to deal with all the questions, and I hope we will be able to improve the standards further to be in line with the international codes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's very sweet and short, and welcome to this session, sir. I'll move on to the next panelist, Mr. Santosh Eswarik. He's also an author and code writer. So the Chief Fire Officer and Fire Advisor to MIDC and Fire Service Director of Maharashtra Fire Service. He's a science graduate, fire engineering from National Fire Service College, Nagpur, and MBA in finance and law graduate. I always, when I read his profile, he's everything. He's an engineer, he's a graduate, he's a businessman, he's a finance, and he's also a lawyer. Very few find in the fire officers who has all these corners. So I need to be careful when I'm talking to him. So he has over 28 years of experience in fire prevention protection. He has served in various positions in MIDC fire services. One of the architects in drafting India's first state Maharashtra Fire Act, an expert in firefighting of various occupancies, implementation of fire preventions and life safety measures as per National Building Code of India. He has successfully handled various industrial projects, special townships, SEZs, and IT parks in Maharashtra. Our dear friend, Santosh Eswarik. Sir, a few words from you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dominic, for that introduction. And NBC Part 4, it is very dynamic code. As Mr. V. Suresh sir already narrated various provisions about the Part 4. The specifically NBC provisions are recommendatory and through the fire acts of the state or the development control rules of municipal authorities or the special planning authorities or any other statute, it can be made mandatory. So that is the first thing. And considering the new challenges of high-rise building, industrialization and urbanization in India, it is means important to have the implementation of the code in total aspects, not in the particular aspect. So considering that it is the responsibility of every stakeholder, right from the developer, architect, fire consultant, plumbing consultant, HVAC, electrical ones, to implement the codal provisions for the building to make to save the precious human life and property. Thank you. Over
Thank
to
you
you,
very
Dominic.
much, sir. Yeah, thank you, sir. Lovely to have you on this panel as a panelist in this session. And I have next Abhay Purandare, the ever smiling and very calm, always well balanced personality and man who has fantastic, education on fire and life safety. I was just reading it out. Even I was thinking he's a graduate in fire, but I was very surprised to see he's a graduate from Mechanical Engineering Fire Protection, University of Maryland College Park, which is well-known, respected university in US for fire officers, and his fellowship from Institution of Fire Engineers UK. And also his father is highly respected fire officers from Gujarat. I remember when I was a president of FSAI, we awarded lifetime achievement for his father. The father and son, the two eyes of India in fire. Wonderful to have you here, sir. I'll just read out your further profile. You're a fire and life safety consultant providing fire engineering and life safety related services and advisors to the clients in India, Middle East, both in industrial and building sector, carrying out review of fire and life safety strategy, reports and plans, fire detection protection, smoke management drawings, and advising on related technical matters, providing experts and performance-based solution for non-compliant and complex issues related to fire and life safety. He specialized in training programs on fire and life safety, codes and practices, fire protection, fire prevention, safety topics, tailor-made for target audience. He is expert in fire investigation and fire scene reconstruction for fire incident with comprehensive report covering hypothesis, related calculations and modeling, etc. I'm so glad to have the four senior most experts in the country, Mr. V. Suresh, T.R.A. Krishnan, Santosh Warik, and Abhay. I can't expect better panelists other than three. So wonderful to have you all, sir. I'm sure Mr. Abhay Purandare has a small slides for you all. So I will give this, I'll share the screen to Abhay. Abhay, over to you.
Thank you, Dominic, and thank you for this opportunity to interact with such a large audience. It's a small presentation that I've compiled 7-8 slides, but this was in response to the questions that were received. So I thought that certain things can be made clear before we begin, because it may not be possible to answer all questions. So I'll just quickly run through this. It will take maybe 3-4 minutes. So one is that, as you all know, we are not very well placed as far as the fire safety is concerned. This is the average number of fires for a 5-year period, and you can see there we are there. There are 13 countries which have between 1 lakh to 6 lakh fires, and we are there at number 2. More concerning is this, the average number of fire deaths in the same period, and you can see that we are right there on top along with some other countries. So this should be a matter of concern for all of us as a country. It's not just the regulators or the code writers whose job it is to look at this, it's for every one of us. And this is a document on Global Resilience Index of Nations, which rates India's risk quality. And it rates India at 54 out of 110 countries. So we are approximately halfway, and definitely there's a lot of scope for improvement. One of the risk quality factors which is considered is the fire risk quality. And you will see here that the quality and enforcement of a country's building code with respect to fire-based design is 2% of the fire risk quality. So that's why the NBC Part 4 becomes very important, because the better is the implementation, the better will be our fire risk quality. So, and the comment that is given in this report says that the key challenge for India will be to ensure widespread enforcement of its updated code, which would improve its fire risk quality and natural hazard risk quality. So that's what we are facing today. And just to give a small idea about how we go about, so these are the different fire safety components that we normally address when we are talking of a code. So fire prevention, protection, implementation, and response. And you will see that this is just a scale which is not specific, but a general scale. And you will see that we are there. And this level of safety is determined by society, society meaning all of us. And different countries will have different acceptable levels of safety depending on their outlook and resources. For example, a country like USA has a higher acceptable level of safety than us. So they would demand more from the designers, more from the installers. But we need to at least ensure that whatever our codes write, we need to meet that, right? So it could happen that you could be slightly less in fire protection or compartmentation, but then if I have better response or if I have better fire prevention, I could overcome those problems, right? But it should not be a situation where I am not meeting any of the components that are specified by the codes, unfortunately, which is happening now. And this is what we need to strive to improve this and ensure that we meet at least the basic minimum levels that the code specifies, right? And the code specifies the minimum level. There is no limit if you want to go beyond that. And of course, there is some cost and some effort involved in maintaining that required level of safety. And I'm sure as a responsible country, we should, as a responsible society, we should be willing to accept that. So as Mr. Suresh mentioned and Mr. Warik sir also clarified that NBC is a model code and needs to be formally accepted by states for implementation. So the state has to pass an act saying that yes, we are going to use NBC Part 4 for our building design and compliance, right? So the onus of implementation is on states, as fire safety is a state subject. This was earlier. Now many states have said that they will implement Part 4 in total. So there are some states which refer to Table 7. Some states which say, okay, we will, in their DCRs, they will say, okay, we will refer to this clause of NBC Part 4 for compartmentation or for structural fire protection. But there are some states who say that, no, we'll adopt Part 4 in total. And that's a good sign because there is no confusion there. And that is what we want, that ultimately all states should be able to adopt Part 4. Right, and improving the level of acceptance and implementation is imperative if we wish to improve our fire statistics, right? And the purpose of a code is served only upon its full acceptance and implementation by stakeholders. And importantly, unless the code provisions and the underlying concepts are explained to stakeholders, they are unlikely to appreciate its importance in creating a fire safe society. So that's what is happening currently. People don't understand why a certain clause is written that way. But when you understand the underlying concept, the logic behind it, then it becomes much more easier to accept that. And that's what we want to do. Right? And influential committees such as developers, architects, regulatory authorities need to be targeted. So with this, I'll stop my presentation here and request Dominic to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhay. Thank you for giving these slides on highlighting on the important of the question that we received, and we are going to handle it. So I'll now open this forum to a question answer. Most of the participants may be aware that we had invited question answer at the time of invitation. So we have received almost 170 questions. So from each individuals, and it could be more when I multiply that into 2. So we have exactly 1.5 hours to take these questions. We will try to make the answer as crisp as possible. And I probably indicate who could answer. If I'm maybe wrong, the other panelists can take up these questions. So the first question of the day on the question of Part 4, Fire and Life Safety, NBC 2016, is from Mr. B.K. Chowdhury. The question number 1, criteria of issuing NOC for fire safety for a building less than 9-meter height and less than 500 square meter area wise, is it essential to obtain NOC for such type of building having 20-bed hospital? I would request our friend Mr. Santosh Warik to take up this question.
So the building approval is a local authorities or the state authorities subject. As per the provisions of development control rules and the State Fire Act, every building has to be approved, whichever is coming in that particular area. So before granting building plan approval, the provisional fire approval from the fire service is required as per the development control rule of that area. So every building plan approval is before granting plan approval, fire NOC is granted. For the buildings below 9 meters as specified in NBC, it is not covered, but the minimum requirement for the fire extinguishers or depending upon the type of occupancy, the additional requirement can be specified by the fire authorities based upon the development control rules or potential fire risk of that particular building. As far as the nursing homes are concerned, there is a separate statute which covers the nursing homes by the local authorities, and they required fire approval from the fire authorities, then health officers approval for opening such healthcare facilities. So for that, minimum fire protection requirement are specified by the every fire department. So that is the requirement why the fire approval is required for nursing homes and the buildings above below 9 meters. And minimum requirements like extinguishers or detection can be provided for such type of occupancies.
Thank you, sir. The next question to Mr. T.R.A. Krishnan from Vikram K. Kalba. He is a director and senior risk consultant. The question number 1. While Table 7 in NBC provides guidance for fire, water tank and pump, it is not clear whether this is for hydrant system, a sprinkler system, or for combined system. While IS 15105 gives much higher tank and pump room, clarity is required since the provisional NOC not effectively specify the tank capacity. I think there's some typo error here. So I'm sure Mr. T.R.A. Krishnan would have read this question, the balance. I have some issues in because overtyped again on my question here. Over to Mr. T.R.A. Krishnan.
Yeah, the table 7, if you see, we have given separate pumping capacities for hydrant, pumping capacity for sprinkler in the notes. If you can see the tables, we will only refer you to the notes. When you go to the note, you know which is for hydrant system, what capacity for hydrant system, what capacity for sprinkler system. They're already specified. Of course, the tank capacity is common. As you all know and appreciate, the National Building Code, we try to provide only minimum requirements for any building, minimum requirements. They are not the ultimate requirements, they are minimum requirements. So if you want detailed requirements, you have to go to the concerned standards like what is referred here, IS 15105 for sprinklers and IS 13039 for hydrant system and so on. See, it is not possible to bring all those requirements into a National Building Code. See, the table 7 covers only minimum requirements for pumping capacity and water capacity, and contrary to what is stated in the question, separate capacities for hydrants, separate capacity for sprinklers pump are mentioned in the notes. Maybe the question, you may have overlooked to see the notes. And secondly, what I would try to stress initially before attempting to answer all the other questions here, as a part of the National Building Code Core Committee, what I would suggest that there are almost about 47 standards directly or indirectly related to the National Building Code. So National Building Code can give only reference to those standards. They cannot specify the requirements, what is expected in the NBC. The moment you ask for a question on sprinkler or a curtain, water curtains like that, you should go to the concerned standard rather than coming to NBC, because NBC cannot bring everything. NBC will only say you have to provide sprinklers, but how to provide sprinklers, that you have to go to the concerned standard. So water capacities, pumping capacities for sprinkler system, hydro system, they are already mentioned. Kindly please go through the notes.
So thank you, sir. Again, to Mr. T.R.A. Krishnan, sir. The question is from Rakesh Kumar Rajput. According to NBC Part 4, fire hydrant height should be 0.9 meters. And in Indian standard, it is 1 meter to 1.2 meter, which is correct.
Sir, again, I'm telling you, NBC, there was no mention about regarding the height. I don't know where from you got it. And even if you get it, as I already told, you have to go to the standard concern. NBC will not specify any individual requirements. So 0.9 meters, I don't know where from you have taken it, maybe an old version or whatever it is. If it is there, then kindly we stand corrected that you have to go to the IS 13039 for that. NBC cannot specify what is the requirement.
Okay. I'll move on to the other questions. I have again Mr. Umeshwar Rao. I'll take this question later after Abhay. This question is for both Abhay, Purandare, Santosh and T.R.A. Krishnan. So this is from Mohammad Rizwan. So it's a very lengthy question. So I'm sure I can read out only two questions at this moment. When the twin hydrant valve is considered, there is no mention of its selection in NBC 2016. The second question, what is the minimum riser size for sprinkler system? Please tell the basis with regard to codes and standard, as the same is not mentioned in NBC 2016. I think this question is for Mr. T.R.A. Krishnan.
Yeah, in fact, NBC 2016, the twin hydrant valve is not covered. It is not considered at all. In fact, none of the states in India, they are going for double outlet valves. I mean, single valves with two outlets. I mean, so that question is answered because there is no mention in 2016, but rightfully it's not mentioned. The second is, what is the minimum riser size for sprinkler system? Please tell the basis with respect to codes. Minimum riser size in sprinkler system, it goes by hydraulics. We cannot say it. So you cannot put minimum means even 2 inches sometimes. If suppose it's only ground plus 1 floor, even 2 inches can be a riser. It depends upon how large the building is. So it is not possible to mention. So you have to see the building, how many floors, what is the area and number of sprinklers required, then what the floor required, then calculate the riser size. Minimum, according to me, should not be less than 2 inches.
Okay, the next question again this is for Mr. Santosh Wari from Mohammad Rizwan. What is the minimum and maximum flow and pressure required at nozzle in water curtain system as per, sorry, must be again T.R.A. Krishnan because he's written the codes for the water maze. Sir, he's asking what is the minimum and maximum flow pressure required at nozzle in water curtain system as per the NBC 2016?
I correct the question. It is not a list system. It is what he is asking is water curtains. So water curtains, actually water curtain sprinklers are normally used for exposure protection, or probably now the compartmentation also has come with the water curtain sprinklers. But mostly in our service, I have seen that water curtain sprinklers are used only for exposure protection. That means one hazardous building and is situated very close to the another differentially, hazardous building. Then the external wall openings on one side, we have to provide curtain sprinklers to see that the fire doesn't spread from one building to the other building. That is the principle. So these water curtain sprinklers was not covered so far in India. We have not given any technical details of that, though it was in vogue for quite some time. We have not covered it in our sprinkler standard. But now you refer to the new IS 15105, which is already approved, which is supposed to have come out from BIS anytime. So you can see all the details, which I don't want to go through in detail because there are plenty of questions. I would only suggest you go through clause 8.5 in that code, which gives every detail what you want.
So this question again to Mr. P.R. Krishnan from Anuj Agarwal. Why are we still insisting the capacity of UGSR with height of building, rather it should only be related to the type and usage, as architects and engineers take advantage of these discrepancies in the code with convenience to the fire fire department. Yeah.
No, height of the building is, so we have to take into consideration height of the building, because height of the building decides what is the, how much pressure is required, what is the head it should generate. So height of the building we cannot omit. I agree, even layout and nature of process, nature of occupancy, all those things also have to be seen, but we cannot ignore height for a specific reason which I mentioned. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you. The next question to Mr. Santosh Wari from Krishna Rao. What is the right way of calculating the floor occupancy as per the code? Sir, are you there? Mr. Santosh?
Yeah. The floor occupancy means occupant load is specified in the National Building Code, and total means occupant load. It is the principle is how the person is going to use that space. For example, if you are using educational building, so only you are going to sit in particular bench for some time, and only in recess you are utilizing some other activities, and you are coming out of it. So it requires a minimum space. But in case of residential, it is 12.5 square meters per person. So where you have a living room, you have a kitchen, you have bedroom. So various activities, sleeping accommodation is there. Then cooking accommodation, cooking facilities are there, and sit outs are there. So a person utilizing more space for different type of activities. So it occupant load for residential is 12.5. In case of office building also, sit out areas, meeting areas, then circulation areas. So occupant load is calculated as a 10 square meter per person. So it is different for different activities. So total gross area, floor plate area divided by number of occupants. So that way we have to calculate the total occupant, means floor area divided by occupant load. So that is number of occupants will come out in that particular floor. That is a simple rule given in National Building Code to calculate the occupant load. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next question to Mr. Abhay Purandare. Is there any fire requirement for underpass pedestrian tunnel, bracket, no transit, only for pedestrian road crossing? Let's say tunnel length is 100 meters. Kindly guide and explain.
Abhay, you unmute yourself.
It depends on where the tunnel is. If the tunnel is, say, in a public place where there is not likely to be any risk because of the only probability of a fire occurring in such areas is due to arson, when somebody deliberately sets fire. Otherwise, there is no fire load in such occupancies. So there is no chance of a fire taking place. But yes, if this tunnel was joining two buildings in the Parliament complex, then I would think of providing some sort of fire protection for that tunnel. Or if it was in the FBI head office or the Pentagon, then probably that tunnel would require to be protected using fire protection. But if it is an area that is being used in a public place, which is if the tunnel is open from both sides, there is no likelihood of any fire happening there because there is no fuel available there. Then I don't think you need any fire protection for that.
I think some clarification is given for the metro related aspects on that. Some aspects that tunnels are coming, the additional fire protection requirements are covered. So I'd advise them to have a look at that. Okay, go forward.
Again, the question again, Abhay, for kitchen, say 100 square meter fire protection, what kind of separation is required can you use Class K extinguisher as per National Building Code 2016?
Again, probably
Okay.
the local DCRs will specify what you require, but if it is 100 meters square, then it's obviously a commercial kitchen. And for most commercial kitchens, there is a requirement to provide a wet chemical fixed system. Extinguishers may not be enough for such a large kitchen.
Abhay, one more question to you. While calculating basement area for fire curtain compartmentation, can the basement area or pump room or ventilation room area in basement all to be included?
No, they should not be included because they will be separate from the basement by fire rated construction. So if you have a pump room, obviously that pump room is going to be separated from the basement area using fire rated construction. So it will not be used for calculating the compartment area.
Okay. Thank you, Abhay. The next question is for Mr. Santosh Warik. How to calculate fire water tank if we consider separate hydrant and sprinkler system as per IS standard?
I think TRS will be in a better position.
This is for TRA. So again, I'll read out this for Mr. TRA Krishnan.
What is the question, please?
Viber. This is from Viber. How to calculate fire water tank if we consider separate hydrant and sprinkler system as per IS standards?
It is a hydrant system as per IS 13039 specifies what is the capacity of the water tank for various types of hazards: low hazard, ordinary hazard, moderate hazard, high hazard, A, B, and storage hazard, etc. Pumping capacity as well as what is the duration of the pump running is also specified. So that capacity has to be taken. Suppose let us say hydrant system, we need 171 meter cube per hour. We take an ordinary hazard, so 2 hours water requirement for that. And then sprinkler again, what is the pumping capacity? See 1 hour or 1.5 hours or 2 hours of pump running. That water capacity has to be taken separately, and both have to be added, and it should be available in the water tank.
This is again, thank you, sir, for Mr. Santosh Warik from Krishna Rao. What is the right way of calculating the floor occupancy as per the code?
That's already answered.
That is already answered. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Answered, no.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll move on to Mr. Anil Watke. His question is to Mr. Santosh Warik. Is it important to install sprinkler for building less than 15 meters with third floor getting prepared for emergency contact center in Nagpur?
Yes.
Occupancy will be around 50 people and 5,000 square feet area.
The floor plate already he has mentioned it is more than 500 square meters. So though the building is less than 15 meters, the sprinkler requirement would be there depending upon the travel distance and number of staircases available over there. So you have to see all the provisions while giving fire protection for the less than 15 meters building. You have to see the approach of the availability of local fire services, the roads availability, parking availabilities for the circulation of the fire appliances, and considering that, you have to see the type of occupancies. If the bottom level is say commercial shopping mall, then first floor some office and second floor some office having floor plate more than 500, definitely such type of arrangement should have the sprinkler system for the better protection. Thank you.
So next question to Mr. Santosh Warik and Abhay. The question from Ronald Saldana. Does an office building reception area, which is used as a transition space for employees and visitors to reach their respective floor, and which has double and single height space, require compartmentation as per NBC?
Should I answer?
Yes, Abhay, go ahead.
It depends on what your local laws say. If they have adopted NBC, you have to adhere to the NBC requirements of compartmentation. And please note that whatever is the law of the land, that has to be followed. Okay, so you may be having a very big reception area, but if the requirement says that in a business building, you need to have a certain size of compartment, and that needs to be followed as per NBC, if NBC is applicable as per your local laws. Would you like to add anything, Santosh sir?
Yes, means if the staircases means how if the that hotel or business building having two staircases and both the staircases are internal one and they are passing through that atrium, I think in such case we should have this separation or the 2 hours fire rated corridor leading to the external, that is exit discharge. So that would be more means safety point of view. It can be segregated from the other compartment, that is atrium, you can say, entrance lobby.
Right.
Abhay, you said local law, that is, which is again the state law or a municipal law. If they, if the law is not as per the NBC, maybe compromising certain, standard, still, can they get an NOC if they compromise on
Yeah.
NBC? But local law is allowing them to do it.
If the local authorities agree or they are agreeable to a different requirement, and if they are convinced that this is safe, then they can allow that. So it's the prerogative of the local authority to overrule in case there is any discrepancy.
Okay, next question to Mr. TRA and again Abhay Purandre. The question is from Sriram.
Yeah.
How the sprinkler in refuge area beneficial if the refuge floor is open on two sides of the roof above?
Sprinkler in refuge area, is that the question?
Yeah, how the sprinkler in refuge area beneficial if the refuge floor is open on two sides with roof above?
Who is running?
The question is not clear, sir?
I don't think anybody provides a sprinkler in refuge areas, okay?
So actually,
Refuge area.
as per the National Building Code, entire refuge area shall be sprinkler. It is mentioned there in section is mentioned there. But there are specific cases. Suppose that somewhere I have seen this, these refuge areas are fully open to sky. Somewhere they have only roof, 3 sides open. Somewhere they have 2 sides open. Such cases are there. In such cases, of course, as he said, the sprinklers may not work. If both sides are open, it may not work. And so what is preferable is the entry to the refuge area, we should provide with the spot sprinklers so that anybody can open from inside.
Yeah. That is not refuge area, Krishnan.
Yeah.
That area is not refuge. Refuge area is the area you come out to take refuge, not
That's
a
right,
space
sir.
within the building.
I am
So
saying,
let's make it very clear. Refuge area is the area where you go to take refuge, which from where you can have the evacuation taking place. You're taking refuge there from the fire. And so no fire will reach that particular area. You have to ensure that.
That's what I'm saying. That is exactly what I'm saying. In such cases, when it's fully open on the other sides, the entry to the refuge area should have protection with sprinklers. The door should have spot sprinklers so that people can enter without spread of fire or smoke to that. That is the idea.
Right. Very right.
Okay, this is again the question for Santosh Warik from Gopinath Ekur. Is it mandatory to provide exclusive solar powered lighting in common areas and staircases of a commercial multi-story building?
It is not mandatory to draw from solar only. You can utilize battery operated also or backup from the any other source. It is not specified only from solar, but for the green things, there are requirements about the development control authorities to have minimum 2% or 3% renewable energy to be utilized for data center or IT park. So from that requirement, some local authority may insist for some uses for renewable energy, but not specifically for this signages or something. You should draw energy only from solar. That embargo is not there.
Yeah, today, like the system has its own inbuilt battery, and if it is standalone, still they have its own battery. But unless there's a separate battery bank available for lighting of the emergency lighting. Next question from architect Nilesh Suryavanshi. This question for Santosh Warik. Is there any information regarding how many fire covers to be provided as per floor area of building heights number of users? This is a common question while designing high-rise building and IT building, bigger floor plate design.
So as per the guidelines given in Annexure E for the high-rise building in Part 4, it says for the residential building and the educational building above 15 meters, they should have minimum one. And for other activities where means residential hotels are there, then business buildings are there, IT parks or like that. So in that case, for every compartment, there should be one fire tower. So that is the requirement specified in the National Building Code Part 4, Annexure E for high-rise buildings.
Thank you, sir. This question is for Mr. T.R. Krishnan from Sarvana Kumar. Why it is necessary to go with VFT or soft starter for the fire pump, since the fire pump will be operation only in fire scenario and will be in continuous operation like utility service.
So first of all, where it is mentioned that variable frequency starters should be mentioned, soft starters are required for the fire pumps. We have not said that anywhere. Even NBC cannot say that. So ultimately, I mean, as I mentioned initially, you have to go to the consent standards. There, we always recommend only DOL starters, as far as possible DOL starters. And depending upon the pump horsepower and the maximum demand requirements at the site, even soft starter starters are allowed. We are not restricted to put only this type of starters anywhere. Only these two starters are normally used.
Again, the question to you from same Sarvana Kumar is asking, as per NBC, it is recommended to go with deluge valve for water curtain system. However, in few projects, motorized butterfly valves are used. Whether it is acceptable as per the National Building Guidelines?
Actually, why deluge valves it mentioned because it's going to be deluge because all sprinklers are open. In case of water curtains, suppose there are 30, 40 sprinklers, all of them are going to operate and the demand is quite high, flow demand is quite high. So it's a sort of deluge. So a deluge valve is always preferable, always preferable. And motorized butterfly valves, you know, butterfly valves, it opens gradually. It is not, doesn't allow water. And even the central flap opens, there's going to be a couple effect. Water coming from that side, coming this side, there's going to be a problem. So I think butterfly starter is not a good option. You have to go only for the deluge valve. When there is a total number of entire flow is going to be discharged to the pipelines. Deluge valve, that is why we call it deluge system.
So the question to Mr. Santosh Warik from SETI, is it applicable for whole building? Is retrofitting required for whole building? Is it a statutory or mandatory in all states?
See, any act or any rule is always prospective and it cannot be retrospective. As the building has already approved in past, already occupied, then the new rules will not be applicable for that. But in case of any change or any activity change or any internal changes are done, in that case, definitely the local authority or local fire services may insist for additional protection layer in the building, which can be, you cannot change the width of the staircases, width of the passages in old buildings. But you can have the additional protection requirement like detection system. You can have manual call points. So these layers, additional safety layers, can be incorporated in old buildings. So there are means in international standards there is a provision for new and old building both. But NBC do not have such type of provisions for old buildings. But if local authority say they want to have additional requirements, then definitely that can be provided in the building. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Sir, again, this is for Abhay Purandre and even Santosh Warik can pitch in. The question from Vinay Kadilkar. We understand that lift lobby must be separated from the floor with fire-rated doors. What happens when the lifts open directly in a central atrium, similar to many five-star hotels? Are such cases non-compliant with codes?
Abhay, you are on mute.
we must differentiate between these two areas. One is the level of exit discharge. So when we're talking of the ground floor, that is the level of exit discharge. And the floors above that are floors which can get affected by fire. Even the level of exit discharge can get affected. But the reason why this requirement is provided is basically at a later stage of the fire when firefighters go up, and if they use the fire lift, they should be protected from the effects of a fire. So that's the reason why this happens. When people are evacuating, this arrangement has little importance. When you come to the ground floor, you are actually exiting from the building. So this is a different requirement, and that is why it's not required to have this arrangement on the ground floor. That is the level of exit discharge. So we need to understand the difference between the level of exit discharge and the other levels as far as firefighting response is concerned. That's
Thank
my
you. Thank you. So the question to TRA question from Shweta Sangam. Why booster pump installation is necessary? Can we avoid it? Mr. TRA.
I don't understand the question. If the
Why, why
type-
booster pump? The question is why booster pump installation is necessary? Can we avoid it?
that's what I'm saying. How can we avoid it? Because for every type of building and type of occupancy, it calls for type of protection. So hence it is required. The pump is not required as per the code. Yes, it's not required because for smaller and smaller occupancies and very, very low rise buildings and all, it may be possible because we can even take from overhead tank. I mean, by gravity pressure or a small pump at the terrace level, we can use it. Otherwise, it is not possible to avoid the booster pump.
Okay, the next question to Mr. Santoshwari from Pradeep. According to me, it seems there is so many governing documents like codes, etc., are available and followed in our nation and other countries also. My question is, why 100% implementation for same is not seen in land or buildings? Such type questions are arrived in mindset as per news like fire accident, fire protection system do not work, broken for recently constructed bridges, collapses, and many reasons that in the TV it comes. So again, I'll ask you the question, why 100% implementation for the same is not seen for buildings?
So already Mr. V. Suresh and TRS sir has mentioned about it. So it should be a collective effort from all stakeholders, all services going inside the building. So everybody has to go as per the provisions of the NBC and the different parts. Then only it is possible. If you say overall requirements, we have only, means there is a gap of fire services in terms of number of trained personnel, number of fire stations and number of appliances is more than 90% in the country. So you cannot have so many fire officers to visit each and every building and ensure that the fire safety is there. Secondly, the safety culture is not there in India. Only in MNCs and big companies only you will be in a position to see they have the fire and safety officers employed for 24/7 to take care of the facilities. So in case of residential building or even in small business buildings also or malls, there are hardly any teams available for the first responder. So considering this scenario, you have to ensure that the minimum protection what is provided as per the NBC should maintain in the good working condition. So actual in case of emergency, it will come in operation. So that is the bottom requirement, and it is everybody's or user or occupier, whosoever it may be, it's his responsibility to ensure that whatever the system provided in the building, they are in the good working condition so that they can be utilized in case of real emergency. That's it. Thank you.
And I think two more dimensions that should be added is also not just the building in normal condition. Buildings in calamitous situation is also important. Very many natural disasters can come over there. It can be a very heavy cyclonic weather, very heavy rainfall, very heavy earthquake or a flooding or a landslide. You know, these type of natural calamities are also issues where, in addition to the normal forces, buildings on buildings, these particular things come. And how fire safety and rescue are there together. They are both connected together. will affect. I told in terms of sway coming. I talked also in respect of the what should happen in those particular things to take care of the sway of the building for wind sway as well as earthquake sway, etc., etc. Got to also deal with that. And then the building code has got to be, part 4 has to be read along with part 6 structural design, in any case for glazing, structural glazing issue, and part 8 on building services and part 9 on plumbing services. So not part 4 alone, because you might have a problem on the fire due to the air conditioning installation, due to the lift installation, due to the electrical installation, due to the plumbing installation coming over there. So therefore, you'll have to be an integrated approach has got to be done to take care of that. Fire will come as a result of any one of those particular components, the source of that, not in the normal activity related one. And therefore, the coordination, integration between all the critical services also become important. Fire service, fighting service also an equally important component. So you got to keep that also in view. And structural design, I did make a mention. I just thought, how can structure and fire come together? But you'll be very happy to know that the NBC 2016 has got a clear provision that for buildings, especially tall buildings and other buildings over there, where the fire load is higher, the column, the beam, the slab, and the floor, each one should have additional cover of reinforcement, which the structural engineer may not have covered. But to take care of the additional fire resistance rating required, the building code, both in part 6 and structural design, concrete code, and the part 4, they provide the requirement on that. Therefore, suddenly you will find it is not just the requirement of the from fire load alone, but the fire resistance rating will improve for the column, the beam, the slab, as well as the floor. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Suresh sir, for adding more clarity to that questions. The question number 22 from Sauri Rajan from Jain University. The question to Mr. T.R.A. Krishnan and Abhay. There has been long gap in the release of National Building Code after NBC 2005, and there has been lot of changes encountered in the modern buildings and the lifestyle. How does the latest NBC accounts for with regard to part 4? Are the manufacturing and testing agencies equipped fully to meet the code requirements?
So what is the question?
The question is, there is a gap between 2005 and 2016, and
I'll clarify that. NBC, as Mr. Saab has indicated over there, is a dynamic document, continuously kept alive through the comments which is received. The panels which are dealing with the NBC are all live panels. They are not dead panels. Panels mean those members, committee members, continuously receive those comments. I think at the beginning of the meeting, we indicated that we, keep a track on the feedback on the building code on a day-to-day basis through the comments coming. And these comments, when it comes to a reasonably critical mass or some emergency requirement are there, the panel meets immediately to see the comments over there. So after considering those particular comments over there, the panel, the technical panel will decide on whether to make some changes, some amendments to be made, some modification to be made, or some new addition made, and that's always done like that. I think in the beginning of the meeting, I already told that how this particular part has generated a lot of comments on that, and you will find very shortly that some of them will come through clarification, increased understanding of the provisions, most of them, and also additions coming through amendment. You don't require a revision of the whole building code just to make changes in part 4 alone. So that can happen. It has already happened earlier. When the 83 version came and before the 2005 came, we brought out amendments to that. Similarly, also in the 2005 version, we brought out certain amendments to the 2005 version. It doesn't have to wait till 2016. So you got to keep track of that. So if there's any concern for you on emergency level, that any provision on the NBC part 4 is having any problem or any restrictive one, please bring it out. This is a time because the panel is continuously meeting. And I told you about 200-page comments are there, which are already seen by the panel. We can do that. So there's no worry at all. NBC always responds immediately. Thank you.
Sir, Sauri Rajan, the question was very clear. When there is a gap, are the manufacturer and testing agencies equipped fully to meet the code requirement. As you know, Jain University has its own testing lab. So he's asking whether testing agencies are fully equipped to meet the code changes and requirements.
Answer is yes.
Yeah. The next question, let's move on to the question to Mr. Santoshwari from Rabindra Dhigaikar. His question is, are all NBC codes are mandatory in India? A very simple answer, I'm sure.
Are all?
Are all the NBC codes are mandatory in India?
Oh, I think it's already clarified. Very clarified. I think any provisions of the building code and the standards are recommendatory guiding document, excepting certain standards which Indian Standards Institution based on government decision would make it mandatory. NBC is not. But the moment the provisions of the NBC is considered as an important one, and the regulatory authorities, which can be a local body, urban development department, or the fire department, thinks all the provisions should be there, they make it mandatory. All the provisions of the National Building Code, that particular will become mandatory. So therefore, the answer is, therefore, depends upon the regulatory authorities on to make them mandatory or not mandatory. And structural design is also another particular part 6, where nobody can think of doing a earthquake resistant design or cyclone in a different way than what is put in the code there. Therefore, all those provisions by and large, according to me, except in part 3, where the local requirements of heights or spaces and requirements of road width, etc., might marginally change, which where again are the local variations coming on that. To me, all other parts of the building code are more or less become mandatory in terms of provisions on that. So that will be the right answer for them to take it forward.
Okay, let's move on to the question number 24 from Pavan Kumar to question to Mr. Abhay and Santosh Warik. For post-project scenario, how can the limitation related to additional features can be added upon or considered as a mobility and space constraint being the major challenges? Abhay? Mr. Santosh Warik, are you there? Should I repeat the question again?
Yeah, repeat the question.
The question from Pawan Kumar. For post-project scenario, how can the limitations related to additional features can be added upon or considered as a mobility and space constraint before the major being the major challenge?
Means he is talking about, means it is, question is not clear. He is talking about external approach road for the movement of fire and emergency services, or circulation after the building is occupied. Then in additional, some features are embedded in the drawing itself, so that common passage is provided in front of lift lobby. They are converted into reception area and sit out areas. So such type of cases are happening in day-to-day life. So
wrong way of doing. Wrong way of doing.
Yes.
That is, you are posing more fire load on a particular area. Also, due to the challenges of car parking, the minimum 6-meter road, which is specified all around the high-rise building for mobility of fire and emergency appliances, that is also blocked by car parks. So that is again a challenge issue for fire services.
Sir, you can stay on. There's a question to you again from Pritish Doshi. How to apply norms of NBC codes and Indian standards for a large scale industries? Which one to follow?
So industry, whatever given in National Building Code Table 7, it is a minimum requirement for small scale industries. There are independent IS standards for various types of industries. They are specified at the end of the part 4 of National Building Code. And in case of other petrochemical or major industries, pharma industries, or even fertilizer industries, there are separate standards under Petroleum Act. There are different factory acts are there. So various guidelines are provided for different type of industries. So that will be made applicable. So whatever given, as Mr. T.R.A. Krishna already told, the requirements specified for industries, they are the minimum ones. So depending upon the potential risk, what you are storing, where you are storing, what is the process, what is the temperature in the process, what is your finished good, what are the physical and chemical properties of the finished good. Based upon that, your requirement for fire and life safety will be different for different industries. So one has to take a call depending upon the total raw material available in the industry, the process hazards and the storage hazards. So
Yeah,
all
I think,
utility hazards.
Dominic, with your permission, I find one comment keeping on coming from Lalit Deshmukh, the same topic which is just now opened out by Santosh Warik. And he's talking of a building on a 3-storied building or which is going to be pharma bulk drugs. Because of story height being 4.5 meter, he's going up to 17.5 meter. Because we said more than 15 meters, you got to have all the requirement. My own direct answer is, of course, you'll have to do it, whether just because it's only 3-story. Number of story is not the issue. The actual issue is the height of the particular building over there. Warik sir, would you like to clarify on that?
So there are some activities where the building is totally open from all sides. So there is no cladding or enclosures for such type of building. So in that case, we don't insist for the sprinkler protection in these buildings. And there is hardly any human life occupied in such kind of a bulk plants. So we have to consider the total quantity process in that plant, the number of occupant on the floor, and how the building is. Whether if it is covered, then definitely sprinklers will attract.
Yeah, I think this covered.
Building is,
It's
yeah.
a
If it is not covered,
manufacturing floor. That comment is coming
yes.
regularly. Okay. So, Mr.
So
Deshmukh, Lalit Deshmukh, you got an answer. Next one.
Sir, I'm sorry, I'm not, looking at the chat box or
No,
the
no,
question.
I thought it's a related one industry. There's a specific query on industry. Okay.
Yeah,
But
I'm not-
I would like to add some important information here, Mr. Dominic,
Yeah.
if you don't mind. See that the question is very relevant regarding large industries. NBC, as of now, it is not catering to large scale industries. That I would confidently say that. But we are in the process of revising Table 7 as well as the Chapter 5 of the National Building Code. And we are also very actively revising IS 13039 hydrant system. And IS 15105 is already revised and approved also. Now we are separated all moderate and high hazard industries separately. And they will comply only with these respective standards, not Table 7. That, of course, that's a future plan, not exactly the plan on date. It's a future plan.
So again, you can stay back onto the question of from British Doshi. He's asking you, Mr. Pierre question, what should be the minimum tank size, that is diameter, item capacity be considered for water spray system?
That depends. No, water spray system again. Water spray system is a type of deluge system. So the entire water is going to go out of the pump will be always running in more than 100% flow also. So if it's a transformer protection, protection is only for about 30 to 40 minutes. If it is going to be a tank protection, it's going to be a 90 minutes protection requirement. So there are some other cases where it's 2 hours running also. So it all depends upon the individual application. If it is a transformer, the tank capacity may not be large. If it's this one, tank capacity we got determined based on the risk as well as the duration for which water is required. And it is available in IS 15325.
Okay, thank you, sir. This question for Mr. Santosh Warik, if you could understand, while Venkata Krishnan, this question has not much clarity, but however, I try to put this question to you, sir. In the code, they mention only CO2 / inert gas for fire suppression system, not mentioned about clean agent like Fe36, Novak 1230, and why?
See, code, this is the code and not the standard as such. So code cannot include the proprietary names of various total flooding system, FN200, Novak or something. These are the proprietary name of the companies with patent. So we cannot include these all specific name in the code. So we have a separate standard, Indian standard for this, and we have to go as per that. Or if anybody is going as per the international FM or UL approved product, we accept that as per the good international practices. So we are not barring that. But in code, it should be generic. It should not be specifying monopolistic names in the code.
Sir, well answered
That's it.
to that question. Mr. Balakrishnan from L&T is asking this question. Interpretation of basement ventilation requirement is not clear, and each CFO is interpreting in different way. How to bring clarity across all state? He's from L&T, I'm sure. Mr. Balakrishnan, whom I know from Chennai, is handling many projects across the country. So he's saying state to state is differ. From each CFO it differ on basement ventilation.
I think
Depends.
all should adopt the NBC provision. There clarity of one, because what must be happening is some of those states like AP and Telangana, they make changes. They make changes in the NBC provision on various aspects to make it slightly more or less, and not exactly that. And that's what exactly must be Mr. Balakrishnan's concern on that. Each one of them in their own way try to, in the states, for local requirements or pressure, whatever, they make their own particular thing. That means building code is a guiding document. Each state can adopt or adapt with such local variations as may be necessary to deal with. But then there should have clear reason why I'm changing that particular one. You know, there should be requirement in respect of that. That's the only way. But if there are specific areas on which he wants clarity in interpretation on the basement ventilation, we can definitely address that and bring clarity if there is no clarity in the present way the clause is drafted. That's a thing that I want to say. Santosh, you want to add something?
Yeah, means clear guidelines are already given as far as ventilation is concerned. NBC says minimum 0.9 to 1.2 meter, it should be raised so that the light and ventilation can be addressed for the first basement. And in case of second, third or fourth basement, the mechanical ventilation shall be provided through ducting systems. All should be minimum 2 hours fire rated to achieve, in case of any emergency, whatever products or combustions are there, that is hot gases or smoke, can be taken out, and the proper intake also required, and both intake and exhaust system should be minimum, should have minimum fire rating. So that
It's
clear
not clarity.
guidelines are
It's not clarity here. Or yes, Jay.
Okay, thanks, sir. I'll move on to the next question, that is from Mahendra V from Embassy India, Bangalore. This question is for Abhay. Regarding fire stops for shaft, is the UL certified system of fire stop is the only system compliant to NBC 2016, that is IS 12458, 2019 code of requirement. So this is a reference. This has a reference. Sorry, I just missed it. Okay, can you go on to that question, sir? Because my page is somewhere missing. I was reading that question, so my God.
Embassy one, no?
Yeah, embassy is good. Mahendra.
This has host stream testing reference of fire stop code. ISBS 476 compliant, not sufficient for fire stop.
Yeah, I think what the issue here is that one set of tests require a host stream application after it is exposed to fire, while another does not. So the code that we have that requires a host stream application after the duration of the test, which is also there in UL, but it's not there in the British code. So the problem will be that if you take a product which is approved as per the British code, it will not have that requirement related to the host stream test. So that is the issue he has. But yes, if you go as per what is given in NBC and which refers to that IS code, and it has a host stream test, then you will need to have a product which has passed a test which had a host stream involved in that.
Thank you. The next question to Mr. Again, it goes to Abhay and Mr. Thierry Krishnan. Very simple questions. Whether MS conduit is mandatory for fire alarm system for armored cable. Even I have this own doubts. When you have an armored cable, do you need a MS conduit?
Why?
The question to Mr. Thierry Krishnan Abhay, whether MS conduit is mandatory for fire alarm system for armored cable.
Not, sir, no. It's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory. So Kalidasan, it's not mandatory as per building codes. So Pradeep Dani from Vijay System, the Pradeep Dani is asking this question to Abhay. The fire door in NBC class 2.2, note 2 for exit shall have a stability, integrity and 20-minute insulation. Please clarify whether all the other doors in the building shall also have stability, integrity and 20 minutes insulation, or only stability or integrity criteria is enough.
So I think the clause is specific related to exit doors.
Yes.
So if you are talking of doors which are placed in exits and which will typically have a 120-minute fire rating, for that you will need a 20-minute insulation. It needs to meet a 20-minute insulation criteria. If you are providing a door which is not part of an exit, then obviously this does not apply. I think that.
Can you repeat that answer, Abhay? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
I think it's clear. It's very clear. He's given the answer.
Yeah.
What do you want me to repeat that?
Yeah. Can you just repeat that?
This clause refers to doors and exits.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking of doors and exits, I'm referring to doors which will lead to the exit stair, which will typically be a 120-minute fire rating. And for that, they have specified that while the stability and the other criteria needs to be 120 minutes, but for insulation, it can be only 20 minutes.
Okay, for insulation is 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question to Mr. T.R.A. Krishnan sir from Talat Mulani. Sprinkler system requirement for high-rise buildings and high-rise residential building as per new NBC.
Yeah, we have made now a separate annexure in the approved IS 15105, which is pending publication. We have made a separate annexure for sprinkler installation requirements for high-rise buildings.
Sir, this question to Santosh Warik from CL in Narasimhan. Like to understand, as per new NBC, we need to maintain certain changes like having a separate power for lift. But how to go with old building which is not having this provision as a separate line for lift?
So for old buildings, you cannot apply the new rules, as I already told. And in
Well, there's a caveat there. The caveat is that normally in the case of old building, we can't. It's only for new building that can be applied there. But if based on assessment of the authority, they know that the present occupancy cannot be continued with the deficiency level of a very high order, they can request the builder and the occupant to make such changes as may be needed to take care of the safety related issue, and to that extent some retrofitting and changes can happen. It can even go to some extreme situation where if it is of a very dangerous situation, they can also declare the building unsafe. So while the provisions of the NBC cannot be applied for an existing building, to the extent of it being affecting on the safety factors, if it is very predominant, and then they can ask for the changes on marginal repairs, renewal, retrofitting, or staircase is one area where in many cases staircases are provided outside the particular building to take care of the fire escapes and all, which was not originally provided. These are all done 50 years back or so many years back, but users have been continuing to do that, but it's a matter of safety issues on that. But Warik Sahib is absolutely right. The present provisions does not apply to the existing building, it's only for ordinary. But under the unsafe building clause, you can, and which will be known through the visits, structural deficiency or obsolescence or decay, or the system's not in a good condition of working, etc., etc. They'll become all part of the inspections which the fire authorities will do. They can always intervene at that point of time and suggest to the owner and the builders that what needs to be done to have at least the minimum safety aspects to be ensured on that. That aspect also we should know when we know that the present code does not apply to existing buildings. So therefore, with that caveat, you can proceed.
The question to Mr. T.R.A. Krishnan sir from Jose Thomas. We we still see few companies promoting use of AL conductors for fire survival cables. How will such product barred from the market by regulator as it matter of life and death? This question to Mr. T.R. Krishnan sir is regarding cable, is asking there is some confusion regarding capacity of fire. This is from Jose Thomas. We still see few companies promoting use of AL conductors for fire survey cables.
Aluminum conductors.
Yeah.
Actually, it is not, according to me, it is, it should be discouraged. And if necessary, we have to address this in the concerned Indian standard for electrical installation. And we'll, all other codes also, we will try to do something about it.
Okay, sir. So the question from Manish Jain to Mr. T.R. Krishnan sir. In mixed occupancy of high-rise residential building above 45 meters, basement or ordinary and residential area light hazard. In basement, that is GI and MS pipe, and can be PVC, CPVC pipe of residential flow. Is it in such project, is it allowed?
See, if such occupancies are fully segregated, fully fire separated with 4 hours rating and whatever it is mentioned in the code, then I don't find any objection, provided the CPVC pipes can be used in those areas. And where they are used and they are restricted for use, and those areas are mentioned in IS 15105, now in the new publication.
Thank you, sir. The question from Umeshwar Rao to Mr. T.R. Krishnan. There is some confusion regarding capacity of fire pump maximum. I'll read out again. There is some confusion regarding the capacity of fire pump maximum hydrant post, water storage tank for the hydrant system. Some consultants say that we can have up to 100 hydrant post for 171 cubic meter pump. Also, fire tank capacity need not be increased if we increase the pump capacity from 171 meter cubic per hour to 273 cubic meter per hour. Please guide us.
How is it possible, sir? We want 171 meter cube per hour for 2 hours pump running for putting out the fire. That means the water capacity is already 342 meter cube. Suppose you increase it to 270, that means actually the number 2 hours, it comes down to about an hour or so. So how is it possible? Somebody is misguiding. That's all I can say.
Okay. Sunil Kumar question to Mr. Abhay. Is there provision for passive fire protection for combustible services which are passing through fire-rated walls and floors in NBC, as a combustible services like PVC pipes and insulated ducts and pipes require instruments and material?
Yeah, I think NBC is very clear that when you have compartmentation and when you have penetrations in the barriers, then those have to be suitably addressed using fire stop materials, depending on the application. So I think there is no, it's quite clear, there is no confusion in that. We need to have fire stop materials to maintain the integrity of the barrier.
Okay, thank you, Abhay. Sir, Mr. Santosh Warik, the column number 39, the question from Somnath Behra. So can you take from this question for 5 questions, sir? I'll just take a break. The column number 61, the question number 39 from Somnath Behra. I think, can you just take up this question, sir, for up to 5 questions? I want to take a break.
Yes, why NBC not following all over India? Every state has got its own bylaws as far as fire officers. So as far as fire officers are concerned, they have to follow both the local development control rules or develop DCRs or the building bylaws in some states they call. So that is the minimum requirement as far as that city is concerned or that state is concerned or at that province is concerned. And for fire and life safety, they have to depend upon the Part 4 of National Building Code. So they, as far as the building structures are concerned, they have to go as per the local development control rules. And the requirement of fire prevention and protection is concerned, they have to depend upon the Part 4 of National Building Code. So it is a mix of building bylaws or development control rules and the NBC Part 4. So some guidelines which are related to marginal open spaces around the building for the mobility of fire and emergency appliances, then the width of the staircases and corridors, then the location of refuge areas. Some changes are there in the local rules as compared to National Building Code. So they have to go as per the local bylaws, and for fire and safety, the additional layers of National Building Code Part 4 provisions are incorporated by the fire officer. So there is a change across India with respect to state in various type of occupancies. So the next question is Mr. Shahababu Dengi. It is during the construction phase of any commercial building. That question is not clear, but for the construction activities, some guidelines are there in the Part 4, wherein you should have the water storage and the dry piping uh, along with the your construction, so that in case of anything goes wrong, you can utilize that water storage of 2000 liters on every floor for firefighting. Anything goes wrong, then you can have the fire extinguishers also as per the code. There is another question by Dr. K. Kamalan. Signifies the revision of National Building Code under COVID-19 condition. So COVID-19 is a temporary phase, maybe till the vaccine is coming up in the month of January or February. So after that, normal practice will be there. So I don't think that will make more effect on the codal provision. The next question is from Mr. Hetal Desai. How pressurization system works in an atrium area, if it anything given in NBC. So I think TRS sir, there is a separate annexure about.
We have an annexure
Yes.
for atriums. What should be provided, what should not be provided. It is there.
I would like to add here, it's for an atrium, you cannot have a pressurization system. So there it's an exhaust system.
Yep.
And pressurization system is what you will use for an enclosed space such as a staircase.
Correct.
And there is a clear guideline given there. You could, interestingly, the NBC gives the option of a performance-based design also in this case. So one, you can select a certain number of air changes per hour, or you can do an engineering analysis and give a performance-based design also. That option is also there in NBC.
Another is open.
Yeah.
You go ahead, sir.
No, I was wondering that question on COVID is a good relevant question on that. I think large number of things have undergone changes as a result of the Indian Medical Council came with the first one. They indicate that all air-conditioned building, you cannot use it because it ensures the infection being spread. Nothing on the fire issue, but immediately ISHRE had got into the picture to see what therefore needs to be done in central air conditioning systems of buildings to ensure that the infection control is brought in through the right level of temperature control, the filters, and other related issue. And at the end of the day, more important is the enough size of rooms and height of natural ventilation and cross ventilation is an important aspect to be done, and also the space for walking around the building. So what is required is, as far as the fire protection clause is concerned in Part 4, we may not require any post-COVID changes happening, but I do find on the chapter on air conditioning and other related buildings, some amount of change will happen. For example, it is not again affecting Part 4 nahi hai, lifts and escalators, because to avoid the human touch into the particular building over there, the button, the floor button, if you are able to have all of them using which are sensitive ones, the doors to be opening on their own based on the type of various sensory details, and that can happen. Lift floor, various floors can happen. Some of the changes are now being incorporated in those, but not directly in the Part 4 and 5 protection. Other sections, yes, the changes are being incorporated for dealing with the conditions of the post-COVID situation. Possibly, you might have occupant load will be a major area where, like Santoshji had indicated that previously the occupant load for a building is 10, but you don't want them to be packed the same, the 2-meter type of distances to be required. You might find that the number of occupants originally pre-COVID, it would be so many numbers. Post-COVID, and even for some more time, to ensure spread is not there, they'll automatically bring down, while the population can take a larger number of people based on the original occupant load. But now, when things are opening out over there, only 50% of the people are putting, because then you're able to have the additional amount of the distance to become, which was not there earlier. They were too close earlier. Now, all these things are issues which are being working on. Most of the cases, they are not opened up. People are working from home, most of the cases. And therefore, and even industries where they open, I'm sure Santosh can clarify, only 30 or 40% of the people are working on most of the industrial manufacturing floors, and not the full capacity what will be there. Isn't it in MIDC area?
Yes, MIDC areas, IT offices and all that, they are working with only 15% to 20% strength right now.
Correct. That shares the social distancing also. Okay.
Yes.
Sir, Dominic back here. Sir, I've just picked up one question from Mr. Namashivai, who has been regular to as a speaker in our meeting. He's giving a suggestion, also checking up with NBC panelist here. His question is very clear. This again for Mr. P.R. Krishnan, sir. This is from Namashivaya. The side setback requirement in of NBC is not followed in most of the state. In each state, they have their own parameter as per their local regulation. The height of deciding a building as high-rise building is also different from state to state in India. In global level, there are many HRB without setbacks. So when the inbuilt system is self-dependent, the self-dependent fire safety system, what is the point in increasing the side setback requirement? Depends on the increase of building heights as per the NBC 2016. So he's saying, as in 2016, as the building height goes, the side setback also goes. When the system is well, commissioned, so what is the requirement? Hope you understood his question, Mr. K.R.
Yeah, it's a long-winding question, but very simple. Don't put setbacks. Put all the fire protection inbuilt. Put sprinklers all over. Don't ask for any setbacks. That don't depend upon the fire brigade people to come around to fight the fire. That is effectively what, like a row housing he wants to have. Only front setback and the rear setback. Don't insist on side setback at all. That is the short point of that. That development is also permitted in the building code. If you see in Part 3, already you have 3 types of development: for fully detached building, semi-detached building, and row housing. Row housing is only front and rear and interior open spaces, and whereas in the case row housing is not there. It all depends the scale at which you are talking about. If it's a very small building, residential building of 2-storied or 3 stories, all fine. But markets, etc., maximum about 3 floors, you can do that, because then the local fire brigade with the type of firefighting capacities, they can always come and fight the fire. But if it is going to be a tall building, and if you have to really reach a point of view, then the open space around the building has got to be provided. If your local body is put only 2 feet side open space, obviously don't permit the tall building. Simple. Why? Well, there's no problem on that. Nobody has asked you to approve that on that. At least we should not. As a fire authority, you should not ever dare to approve with only 3 feet side open spaces, which is okay for in the building rules for just a 2-story building, like most of the residential buildings in Bangalore are the 3 feet or 4 feet side open space is good enough. Up to a 2-story building, ground plus 1 building, lighting and ventilation is only issue. But if you're talking of a building which is going to be 4-storied, 5-storied, 8-storied, 9-storied, you have to reach that height over there. How will you reach the height over there? Especially if the depth of the building is also there. It also depends how much the depth of the building is coming on that. To reach, it cannot be only from the front only. Yeah.
Sir,
Okay.
Mr. Krishnan sir, comment.
Sir, this question it should be asked to part 3, not part 4, according to me.
Yeah, question of
That's why
Part
I
3.
answered it.
part 3.
Because it is,
Chairman of Part 3, I answered it.
that's why he has answered, Mr. Suresh has answered already. Yeah.
Again, Mr. Ramachayam is very important question he's asking. In NBC Part 4 2016 prescribes active and passive fire safety measures based on the consideration of building floor size and building height. But the fire behavior and impact of the fire depends on the type of fuel, building content, process that happens in the building structure. Please explain then how the parameters of fire safety requirements such as active systems and fire resistant rating, especially water requirements, are derived in NBC. Mr. T.R.A. Krishnan, sir.
A very, very long question, sir. I would like to hear once again.
I'll just read out. NBC Part 4 2016 prescribes active and passive fire system measure based on the consideration of the building floor, building height, but the fire behavior and the impact of the fire depends on the type of fuel or building content, process that happens in the building structure.
Yeah.
Please explain then how the parameters of fire safety requirement in such active system and fire resistant rating, especially water requirements, are derived on in NBC.
Sir, that's why we have done hazard classification now, sir. We have done extensive hazard classification. And we have given as per the hazard classification, we have seen the fire load also we have calculated, and we have given the formulas also in the National Building Code. That is how we divided light, moderate, high hazard A, B, and storage hazards. So how can, what better we can do? Otherwise, we have to go for performance-based design. If it's not code-based, somebody has to give performance-based design. What I just exactly what is in his mind, I cannot read. So what I would only say that hazard classification is done well because we have done in TSC for the last 45 years. The same thing is being followed even today. And we analyze the hazards, and that's why it has gone into the codes.
Sir, we have almost 90 questions on the question answer panel, I think you all can see. And there are another remaining, and I think we have some 70 to 80 questions. What we can do is...
how many questions? How many more
we are still around 150 plus 90, another 250 questions. So which means people are quite inquisitive, people want to have clarity. Yeah. And nice. So what we can do, sir, it's my suggestion. What I will do is I'll put all the questions, relevant questions in the Excel sheet, and probably I'll give it to Mr. Santosh Warik, and we can divide this question and we can answer it. Then I'll put this and provide to all the participants who are here. I have the record of all the participants. I don't want to see that some question we have answered, some question not answered. But if I want to continue this question, I think we'll end up till 6 o'clock in the evening, which is not. Though I would wish to, because I have I can go 24/7 on the Zoom.
No, I think we are already.
I meant to take a break. I just want to go to Zoom, but I'm sure the panelists, you are sitting there, and you need to take a break, and it's not possible to take all questions. But however, we try to attempt this Q&A could be more refined. Say we can go to take these questions and probably publish much earlier. These are the questions that we're going to answer. And so stick to those questions and answer maybe 20 to 30. But yes, sir. So Krishnan,
Dominic, I want to say something. Actually, what happened, I have gone through almost all the questions. What are the balance questions also I have seen. I find that there is there are, as I told you, National Building Code is associated with almost 45 to 46 standards, directly and indirectly. And unfortunately, it so happened that those 47 standards, most of them are not revised. And when National Building Code has come to the latest, they are still lagging behind. Of course, now one by one, they are clearing it one by one now. If at least there are 4 or 5 important standards there which are under consideration, if they are in the final stages, if they are cleared, then all those doubts will automatically go off. All these questions will automatically vanish.
I agree.
Very good. Now, Vice Chairman NBC said agreed, and I'm sure that we can expect a quick resolution to this. And as you said, if those are released, most of the question also is answered. But however, sir, from our end as an expert, from being in this field, it's our duty to answer to all these questions. So ladies and gentlemen, I will try and forward you all the answers to those questions that you asked for. And we cannot.
There is Dominic, with your permission, there's one question which has come, very valid question. It might appear to be very simple. Residential building, no major activity or hazardous occupancy. Arun has asked the right question from BIS itself. Each one having 2 cylinders in their own residence, the kitchen over there. No fire protection facility at all provided at all, especially if it is going to be less than 15 meters and all the particular one. So don't you think we require some protection required, if not small ceasefire type of thing for fire extinguisher, something like that? The general question. Residential building, minimum 2 cylinders in each of the house. It can be a very major hazard there. How do we take care of the ensuring your young children, babies, old people inside the particular house there? Shouldn't we have something put over there, and not only always in tall buildings and other related one? You should provide or not provide. You can, because all the 3 are there. You can give a short reply, then later on we'll see how to NBC cover that. Krishnan sir.
Sir, actually, this question, when I was working in Tariff Advisory Committee, this question was also coming to us quite frequently from others. And as fortunately, we were having enough of experience. We are getting experience, fire loss experience from all the insurers, and we ourselves do fire loss audits, and then we know how much is lost. So from that, we have found that the accidents, what you have specified just now, they are there, but they are very few. So we thought that we will leave it to the BIS. We will not insist.
We leave it to BIS. What do you mean?
We need to be, Bureau of Indian Standards let them mention, because we didn't want to mention it, because we didn't have good
experience. That will come in the code. What is BIS? BIS is an institution. Code is a document. So do you want to have something to be brought into the code to deal with 2 cylinders in the residential building, some provision? You know, can we indicate that at least they should have a small extinguisher there, with a shorter version, which is also now moving in the market? Minimum that something should be provided. I'm not saying that you got a wet riser or dry riser and all the sprinkler. Shouldn't we have something provided is on that?
Sir, my question to you, my answer to Mr. Suresh, sir, you know,
Arun Kumar. No, Arun Kumar's query. Okay.
Yeah, Arun Kumar query, sir. India is the only country in the world which does not insist having a minimum the gas leak detector or an extinguisher or even the fire blanket in the kitchen. So 58% of the fire happens from the home. In Indian, the statistic says the 58% fire that is reported are from homes. So we do not insist, even in Sri Lanka, the country like Bangladesh, they insist for fire blanket in the kitchen, which is mandatory by the municipal corporation. So in India is the only country where in the residential area, we do not insist for gas leak detector and the fire extinguisher and the fire. These 3 need to be made mandatory.
So we need to,
yes, sir.
So we can revisit. We can revisit the clause. Dominic, that's what he's saying. That we need to revisit the clause where no provision is there to make some provision to take care of the safety of not only the kitchen plus the remaining one. And not only that, now the second question that comes over there, a related question is, now that gas supply has gone, piped gas supply has come, like your piped water supply, electric connection, etc. And that's also coming over there. Anything that can come over there at one point of time. There are flats with so many, particularly on each floor and on the vertical height. So possibly gas installation, pipe gas supply, the nature of fire related, what needs to be done of precautionary and other related one, and what should be the minimum type of safeguards required on that we can possibly provide. At present, it's silent. At present, no provision is there. So we'll have to consider that. That's all the point that I'm trying to make.
Sir, concluding remarks from all of you, sir. I'll start with Abhay. You have any? How do you think that?
In fact, to add to this as part of my conclusion, that internationally, you know, the maximum number of fires occur in the residential occupancy.
Yes, sir.
And interestingly, though our experience has been different, as DRS sir said, but internationally, more fires have occurred in low-rise buildings, more fatalities have occurred in low-rise buildings than in high-rise buildings. That's the trend. Okay, and yes, we need to address it. And also the fact that probably we need to have more training sessions, more courses related to NBC Part 4 in higher education for architects, for those kind of professionals. So they get,
Yeah.
exposure. Currently, they are not at all exposed to these issues. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Sir, Santosh Warik, sir.
I would say uh, means being a fire act or the development control rules, जो minimum guidelines are prescribed. So holistically, we have to see the various provisions. Lifts are important for day-to-day use. Then services required, gas pipelines, electrical lines, fiber optic lines. So air conditioning, ventilation for hotels, hospitals. So holistically, every discipline should implement their standards in the building to make building more safer for using it. Thank you.
Sir, Krishnan, sir.
Yeah, it's actually the questions which have come out, they are really very, some of the questions are very great questions, of course, which we are not touched so far. Anyhow, we are going to answer it. In fact, I already wrote my answers. Since it was marked to me, I already given the answer, I can forward it to you. But I would personally feel that we should have one more session like this to go much more deeper into this.
Yes, sir. Maybe better moderator, not like me, probably, and shorten these whole questions. And it need a lot of work. I think this is my third or fourth session on this national building code. We are talking compartmentalizations and all that, but there's so much of interest. As I said in the beginning, there are at least 600 people come in, and the questions they put in is very amazing. Very simple questions, but there are certain questions that has no answer. We will we will continue to take up these kind of question answer, and it need more time. And I'm sure that we will probably take it up more constructive way and try to answer these questions. So before we conclude, I have very interesting news to one is my dear panelists also should know that in these last couple of months during COVID, we all brainstormed that building need to come together. All the societies need to come together. Buildings are getting integrated. It is becoming IoT. The building itself becoming smart. So how do we bring in everybody in the same? I have something very interesting to show you. It's a voiceover. Then I think after that, Mr. V. Suresh will just pitch in to show you something. This is something my friend Ravi Shankar has given the voiceover into this. Hopefully, I'll be able to play this. Where is this share screen?
So context बताओ ना. So context बताओ straight away. What about?
Yes, sir. But I need to
people.
This.
There are 158 people there. So tell the context, then they will hear all that.
Show all the windows. I've showed. Okay, here is the small audio. Sir, Krishnan sir, it is very interesting for you.
Yeah, just a minute. I'm coming.
Yeah. I'll try to play. I'll know this thing. Yeah.
The building construction industry, not just in India, but
can you listen, sir? Can you get?
Yeah.
world over is set to witness a revolutionary change. This is set to take place on the 26th of October 2020.
Volume is lower.
This forum is coming.
Yes, sir.
Volume is low.
Volume is low.
I think
I'll play
Dominic, in the interest of just getting a message directly, we can just tell what it is, the creation of this, started that, and just run through the brochure.
Yeah,
Building construction industry.
Okay, I will put the brochure here.
Boss, tell what the thing is all about.
Yeah, over to you, sir. Why this is there now? You can see the
suddenly drop from 158, 220 to 94 in a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, there's a good point which Sandar Warik has told, that building has got all these critical services on lifts, air conditioning, and fire and plumbing all together. Or there are critical utility services, all have to do their job properly. And the specialists will come in the area of MEP, of mechanical, electrical, plumbing, firefighting, communication. He talked also of the communication cabling coming in a large way, gas supply coming, etc. So a new institution is getting born called FOCUS. It's called FOCUS. It's called the Forum of Critical Utility Services, wherein all concerned dealing with all the services will work together. They all come in the same building area where the architects and the civil engineers will work. Along with this, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, firefighting, and also communication people work, and also the technology provider will come there. So the launch of this particular great institution is starting on the 26th of this month. All institutions dealing with different verticals of that, they're all part of this particular big movement there. So focus is going to be a new area, so they all put their act together in coordination and integration, and they're able to make an impact in the particular sector. So all the 600 people who are registered over there, like to send a special invitation for them to participate. 26 is Vijayadashmi Day. At 7 p.m. is the event, which is going to be a virtual event, and the details will be shared with all the people who are registered. So that's the detailed brochure which is being shown. They've got specialists dealing with about 20 odd verticals to deal with electrical installation, lift installation, fire safety. All those details are people work into it. How you can put your act together, Tarmel to come, most importantly, and not work as verticals, each one of them, and not understanding who is interacting, because they have to take the XYZ space in a 3-dimensional space. Each have to find a space for each of the pipeline or installations or whatever. They got to work together for ensuring safety, efficiency, productivity, and overall quality of life for the people. Simple. So please join.
What he's saying is all the society like FSAI, FPA, CREDI, Council of Architects, and ISRE. So all the society need to come together on the platform. We need to have a provision to where we can have a dialogue, understand their concerns. So this is the objective of this.
Yeah, Dominic, there's a very good suggestion which has come from Arun Kumar, and also told by Krishnan. They said definitely continue the session with the same team, say in 2 weeks' time. Maybe continue that particular one more round. That's what Krishnan also said. So take this agenda forward. There's a very good suggestion which you've got, good feedback which you've got, and see that whatever the remaining question, we'll structure it a little more so that no repetition comes. If it's the same topic, too many people ask, put it together on this issue. So many people have raised question, we can have response coming. Have one more, say, if not 2 weeks, 3 week कर लीजिए, 4 week कर लीजिए. It'll be good to have that one more round. Okay?
Oh, I'm sure I have Mr. T.R. Krishnan. He loves questions. He loves to answer. And Mr. Santosh Varik, who helped me to combine and put this all in order. And Abhay, I would leave with you to whether we can continue this, say after 2 weeks, at your convenience, we can have it. But more constructive way, we can only select. We don't need to repeat those questions what we have answered today. Maybe we can say part two of National Building Code Part 4 as a webinar. I'm sure that you will not say no to me when we invite you from the end of November. We can have, and by then we can have questions compiled and answered to those questions which are already here. So I wanted to thank you. It's 1:15. I'm sorry to hold you for so long, from 10:30 to 1:15. I am grateful for your patience. Lovely to have you all, sir. May God bless you, give you good health, and stay safe. I look forward to see you again, sir. And I will speak to you one-on-one later. Thank you very much. God bless you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dominic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.